Hi, and welcome to Vibes Daily. This is a daily devotional curated by Vibes Church to help you practice the way of Jesus and be all that God has called you to be. You have joined us for our year-long series titled Devoted. Acts 2:42 tells us that the followers of Jesus were devoted to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to breaking of bread, and to prayer. This podcast was created to provide context and commentary for what you read each day. Just before our friends begin discussing today's reading, we want to invite you not only for fellowship, but for prayer as well. We have created the Vibe Daily Chat Group to offer you fellowship and a community where you can state your observations, ask questions about the reading or the podcast. You can join us by downloading the Vibes Church app in your favorite app store. Click Join the Conversation and join us today. And finally, we hope that you can join us for prayer. Prayer happens Monday through Friday, and more information on that can be found on the Vibes Church app under prayer. Now, let's begin our conversation on today's reading.
Yo, welcome back to the Vibes Daily podcast. It is day 211 of our year-long series we have titled Devoted, where we are journeying through the entire Bible from cover to cover in this year. So excited to be here in Isaiah again and to be back and joined by my wife, Victoria. So good to see you, babe. It's been so long.
It's
we
been
have
a long time.
A new one here, Judah, who is with us, who will be joining us this week as well. And yeah, it's been a while since we've sat on this couch and talked about the Bible together, but glad to be back.
Yeah, we made it back. Come on.
We did
somebody.
make it back. We did
It's
make
been
it
a
back.
couple months. But
Yeah,
I'm
Judah.
glad to be back.
Judah kind of got in the way there, but
Listen, we just drop these babies. We keep them moving. Come on.
yeah. So we'll just jump right in. We normally start each week with a question, and last week I asked the question of Tonya, and I'm just going to kind of continue it as we're in this idea of prophets. We'll be in prophets pretty much the rest of the summer as we finish out the Old Testament. So there's dealt with this idea. I'm just curious. In your lifetime, have you ever had someone, or has God ever sent someone to deliver a message to you? And if so, what did they say?
You know, I'm a little convicted, like, as you ask this question, because I know there have been, like, multiple people. I just guess I'm just not as diligent as, like, Isaiah and Jeremiah. Like, I don't think I wrote it down and kept it, like, and remembered what the Lord said. It was so pivotal. So, but there was one person that it stuck out to me. It was a couple years ago. I was in a service and a lady was going around like speaking, and when she got to me, I was just kind of like sitting in the back, and when she got to me, she was just like, I just want to let you know that, like, I know that you are sometimes misunderstood. She was like, but I see the work that the Lord is doing through you, like, and she was like, and you're really powerful and you're doing a lot and you just sitting in the back, but I see you, like, I see you in the spirit and I see what you're doing. Like, just keep doing the good work. Like, keep working on behalf of the Lord. And I was just like, I mean, for one, it stuck with me because I was like, oh yeah, I'm a ninja. You already know, I'm always trying to be a ninja out here. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm a ninja. And so, she sees me. I'm stealth. So that spoke to my heart. But yeah, that was probably one thing that stuck out to me though.
I'm gonna leave the stealth ninja part alone
I'm
right
stealth.
now.
Anyway,
I'm gonna leave it alone.
Anyways, we won't do this on camera. We're not gonna do it.
No, we not. We got more important things to discuss today, like the book of Isaiah. But okay, that's amazing. Last week I shared a story, and I'm gonna kind of share a continuation to that story because there was this time I went to a church, same summer of 2010, and went to a church that I'd never been to before, never been to since. Get to the church, go to service, regular old church service, nothing particularly unique. But afterwards, the program director introduced us to his pastor. And again, it was me and two young ladies, and he first introduced the first young lady, and the pastor was just like, hi, such and such from wherever she was from. And then introduced the next young lady, same thing, hi, such and such from wherever she's from. And it was my turn, and this is Eric from California, and he's just like, "You have a strong spirit on you, son." And I was just like, I could have used the Eric from California, like that'd have been nice, like that'd have been fine. He just challenged me like not to squander it, and like I said, didn't really know where that meant, because candidly, as I said, even I shared my story from last week, like it wasn't like I was living this great life at this point for the Lord, and I was, I guess, starting to turn around, but I still wasn't there yet,
right?
And but then you get in the car after, and Shekinah Glories, Say Yes comes on, and there's more that I require of thee. Does your heart and soul say yes? And I think it just really began that journey of choosing to accept that God may be calling me to into ministry and to pastor and things of that nature. And so that began a journey, plenty of conversations thereafter. But yeah, that pastor, I couldn't even tell you the man's name.
Yeah.
No idea, can tell you the church's name.
Yeah.
But I'll just never forget that interaction specifically. So yeah, I feel like he was a messenger from God in that moment for me. But
isn't that crazy though? Like how like God shows up, like we're still not there yet. Like right, a lot of times he sends his messengers when like he's trying to get us to be better. Like, and so like he will send somebody when we're in our sin and we're like not quite, church worthy yet, right? Or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But he sends it as an encouragement and as a warning, right? I love that, because it's like when we're in our sin, it's not like he has turned his face away from us. Like he is still, like he said, pursuing us and wanting us. So I love to hear that he still pursues you.
Yeah, he did. Oh, he chased me. I wouldn't say pursue. He hunted
you
me.
down.
Hunted me down. Because I was not trying to be found.
That part.
But yeah. Okay. Well, that sets us up for Isaiah again. Isaiah is a prophet, a messenger for the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Just to send his message. We talked a little bit about his message last week, some of what he said, what God is sending him to say to the people of Israel, or primarily the people of Judah, really. It's kind of who his message is for primarily. And then a little bit for us too, because there is some hope and some future and some things of that nature that we get. So chapter 24, where we start today, really just kind of picks up from where 23 ended, as he's really just kind of preaching judgment and pronouncing judgment kind of over first it was, he had gone through all these different foreign lands he had gone through kind of the last few chapters, and now he's just kind of going after everybody, the whole earth is now to be judged. What jumped out to you here in chapter 24?
I think it was that part. Honestly, it was like this whole earth. Like now we're not talking about specific nations. We're talking about the whole thing. It makes me think like how big or how populated was the earth at that time? Because from the Bible standpoint, like we only get the glimpse of like this Egypt and Israel like type territory. We have some of like Ethiopia. It talks about, they mention Asia every now and then. Like I'm not even understanding what whole earth meant at this part. Like, were the Native Americans in America, like were there other places that God was still working, because we only get this glimpse. So even for me, it was just like, wow, what was going on in the entire earth that the Lord was like, I'm done with it.
Yeah Random, but speaking of that, I just read something. I didn't get all the details. I didn't get to it, so but I'm so interested to learn that there were like some pictures taken off some like uncharted like island or something that like the first is like believed to be like the last non-contacted like civilization. It was like actual people, like they all in just like cloths on their privates, and that's pretty much it. Like, and they just, somebody caught pictures of it, like, and I'm just like so interested in these people.
Me too.
That like nobody's ever talked to before.
I love
like, I'm
it.
like, that's crazy. But to your point, just like there's probably all these undiscovered parts of the earth that Isaiah is referring to, because at this point, as you said, they have not even reached that far, to have covered all of the earth in the way that we cover it now. United States of America has 300 or something million people in
Right.
the United States, right? Like at this point, there's no way there were 300 something million people. I mean, even the Earth's population has only continued to grow over time in history. So yeah, definitely you bringing that up you just reminded me of that very interesting thing that there's no telling who was covering and who was going after.
Yeah. In verse 5 here, what were you about to say?
No, what?
Okay. Verse 5, I was looking as you were talking, it was saying how the earth is polluted by its inhabitants.
Mm-hmm.
And it was talking about this broken permanent covenant. And so that's what it did make me think of, like, how at one point there was Noah and this covenant that God made with Noah, and like the flooding of the earth, and like the doing away of all those people. And it breaks my heart that I feel like here we are again. Like at the beginning of that story of Noah, God was really grieved with the people. Like, you guys are terrible. I wanted to start over. And I feel like right now, again, his rhetoric is like, the earth is polluted by these people. Like, you guys transgressed my teachings. You've overstepped decrees. You've broken this covenant, that I've made with you guys. And he made another covenant with Moses in the wilderness, right? Like, that he's continuously trying to make these covenants, and they just keep breaking them. And it says, therefore a curse has consumed the earth, and its inhabitants have become guilty, and the inhabitants have been burned, only a few survive. And so to me, it grieves my heart though, that like, here we are again, like the God feeling like, even though we have all of these people on the earth again, that it's just terrible. These people are terrible.
Yeah. I mean, the description is extremely thorough. I'll say that, right? Like in chapter 24, just as far as what the consequences for the earth will be, right? So like to your point, it is in that place again. Obviously, God has already promised he won't send another flood to wipe everybody out.
Right.
But doesn't mean you're gonna be happy. So
he didn't say nothing about fire.
Yeah, like, and he said, look, I didn't, just because I said I wasn't gonna kill you don't mean everything gonna be happy go lucky.
Right.
Because I mean, like, everybody is, I mean, there's just no joy, right? Like, their songs, aren't great. Their alcohol is bitter. Like, I mean,
that's a shame.
Yeah, like, right. even went after.
Even your wine that's supposed to take you out your mind ain't even good.
Yeah, so you can't even escape it. Is essentially what it's like. You can't find joy and escape kind of what's going to happen, right? And like, he even goes after the moon later, like at the end of this, right? So it's very thorough, and it's reminiscent of just like, I recall when we were in, I can't remember what book we were in Old Testament wise. It might have been like Deuteronomy or something, where like God gives like the promise and like the promise of like what happens if you like are righteous and you stay there. It was like this little like short description, but then he went to the curses, and the curses was like, it was like 2 pages worth. It was like so thorough and extensive, right? Like, it just reminds me of that, because I'm just like, he was going in on just all the things that like the earth should expect as a result of their judgment. But was there anything else in 24? Any other like particular lines that just jumped out to you?
No, I think it was just pretty much overall just how sad that at one point God said all of this was good. And so even when you say that, you mentioned the moon and the sun here, that are in verses 23, that's going to be put to shame and disgraced. I was like, oh, at one point you looked at the moon and the sun, you said it was good. You looked at the people of the earth, and you said it was good. You looked at, even the grapes or whatever that made the wine and stuff, and you said that it was good. And it's just, I don't know, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good call out. That's a good call out. It's the
effect of sin, right?
Yeah.
Just kills everything.
Yeah.
Killjoy.
I imagine if it makes us sad, it made him too.
Oh yeah, he's grieved. This was his stuff. It wasn't even my stuff.
Yeah.
So I have my phone and my Bible, because this is how deep Isaiah be to me. I need NLT here. I need CSB and my commentary. Like, I need the whole thing just to understand what's happening half the time.
Yeah.
No, my ESV Bible is underneath the table somewhere. Like,
that's hilarious.
I had to put that away.
Yeah, and I kept it high level because you're right. There's a lot in here. We'll get to some things, but like, I was like, look, Lord, just what you want me to know? Like, what do I just need to do? Because I get the picture, I get it. Like, judgment is coming. What do you just need me to do, Lord? Because I'm just trying to do that. I'm not trying to end up like Judah. But let's go to 25.
Yeah,
and talk a little bit about 25. Kind of starts with praise, which is interesting. And then really, to me, also just then takes a turn back to judgment. What stuck out to you about chapter 25?
Yeah, I just at first I highlighted this whole, like, how this city have been ruins now and they're rubble and these beautiful palaces have disappear. And part of me just wonders, like, because at this point, like, I'm just thinking of Solomon's palace, right? And King David's palace, and like how much like glory they had and splendor, and how big and probably robust, and all this gold everywhere. And at this point, it's probably sitting somewhere in ruins, like burnt down. I don't know. Has that come yet, or is that in the future?
Still in the future.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
But at some point, it becomes ruins.
Yeah.
And it does, like, to me, it goes back to like this ecclesiastics of like everything is pointless, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like they've made these big old houses, and here we're gonna see that like things are gonna turn into ruins here. So that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah. Actually, because of kind of the end of it with Moab, I think like I took this more as like judgment for the other cities. Because it ends in kind of middle verse 10 here, right? The Moab will be trampled in his place as straw is trampled in a dung pile. He will spread out his arms in the middle of it. And it particularly also because it led with praise, right? Lord, oh my God, I will exalt you, I'll praise your name.
True,
you accomplish wonders. I think I understood it. And then, 26 we'll get to here in a sec is also kind of a song that Judah sings of kind of God and how he saves them. I don't know. I think I kind of originally took it as more so that the city that they're describing is like some other city outside of Judah and Israel. And that was just more just like again, praise for, once you did it, it was done, right? Like it's kind of one of the things I have taken from scripture as we've read it is that like when God solves a problem, like it's solved, right? And so that's kind of what I even took from that verse 2, which is like you said, you've turned that city into a pile of rocks, the fortified city into ruin. The fortress of barbarians is no longer a city. It will never be rebuilt. Yeah. Right? That it'll just like, that's the end of it. And it's the end for sure, like, and for good. And again, that's just something that like, it's so different to me because as we read Isaiah, we talked a little bit about this last week, when he refers to Judah, there's always like this remnant or this seed that's left, right? This stump that's left, right? So like he'll talk about destruction and he'll talk about, devastation, but he always reminds them that like there's going to be this stump or this seed that's left over, because ultimately he's referring to the fact that he's going to bring them back and he's going to continue to fulfill his promise to them, right?
True.
So when I contrast the fact that like when he's talking about these other cities, he's like, nope, never going to be built again. All hope is lost. They're destroyed completely. I think it is just such an interesting contrast because for the people of God and for Israel and Judah, there's usually this seed in the stump, this like leftover, this remnant that's there.
That's good. It's a good call out because when I flipped my page, I was like, oh, it's about Moab. Good stuff. Yeah. That's really good though. But I do love that like they do praise the Lord, and in verse 9 they're like, look, we waited on him and he saved us. And I think that is the comfort for believers. Like when we wait on God, like he saves us. Like he comes and we eating. Like verse 6, I love it. They're like, we feasting. We got a banquet. We got choice meat, prime cuts. Like we got all the wine.
Right, the wine's not bitter anymore.
It's not bitter.
It's not bitter.
It's not bitter.
25.
We got fine wine in verse 6 here, and so I love it that like there is this like celebration in what the Lord has done for us.
Yeah, and that's good. Like I think even just in general, it's one of the challenges with Isaiah. Well, all the prophets that we'll get to, because again, it's not necessarily a sequential order. It's not necessarily like because again, we were just talking about well, we were just talking about the whole earth, but like we go back and forth between judging Judah and judging Israel and judging Moab and judging this. So it's really hard to kind of keep up with all of it sometimes. But yeah, that's good. Okay, well, let's go to 26. We do have a couple more chapters here today. And so speaking of that song, like Judah in 26, this is kind of a song that says to be sang on that day of the Lord, right? So it almost even picks up a little bit from what 25 was saying. But what's jumped out to you here in chapter 26?
Yeah, I think what jumped out to me was, like I said, this song that they're singing. I always wonder. I feel like Dylan Shamika did this for me. It was like, what do the songs sound like? What does this sound like?
Probably super boring.
It probably was, because it didn't give me life. This one just didn't. It didn't hit like Psalm of David. Like it just wasn't giving Psalm of David.
I'm pretty sure David's psalms are boring too.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah.
I just feel like
I don't think there were any 808s
to him.
in
I feel the soul coming out. That could have put you to sleep though. It's true.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I just know there were no 808s. There was no beat machine.
That's funny. That's comedy.
No synthesizer.
Nope. None of that.
So.
Yeah, it's a little plain. We just said. And then some little strings. Little liar. A little liar.
Yeah.
Anyways. Oh, I guess we've come a long way there.
We have. Music has changed.
It has. So according to us, it was not hot.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably like Billboard Top 100 back then, but like for us,
but now it's like,
yeah, it wouldn't have got going viral.
That's real. But what stuck out to me though, like, was all the way down to like 13 and stuff. Okay. It was 13, actually 14. So like, other people have owned us, right? Like other people have ruled over us, right? But you are alone the one we worship. And the NLT and the CSB is different in how they how they write this.
Okay.
Verse. Help me, Lord. But in verse 14, it's like those who we serve, like before us, are dead and gone, right? Their departed spirits will never return. You attacked them and destroyed them, and they're long forgotten. And so I do love that they contrasted, like, you've ruled us for all this time. Now other people have ruled us, but they have come and gone. Like they were fleeting. They were here and then they're not here anymore, and we don't even know where they are. Like they're just dead spirits, right?
Yeah.
But you are the one who has been here all along. And so I love throughout Isaiah how this we'll see a lot of Alpha Omega type literature here, and what he says when the Lord actually speaks, and he challenges them later on too. It's like, I've been here this whole time, like, and so I love that they even acknowledge this in their song.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I actually thought if anything would have jumped out to you, it would have been verses 17 and 18.
Yes, that
was probably the part that, like, I just thought the imagery was crazy.
Yeah.
Again, I've never given birth myself. Never been pregnant. I've been around for 5 of them though, and am somewhat familiar and can empathize with what that process is like. But when he describes that, like, as pregnant woman about to give birth, rise and cries out in her pains, we were before you, Lord. We became pregnant, we writhed in pain, but we gave birth to win.
That part.
I was just
rude.
Like, that.
It's rude.
Like, can you imagine going through all of pregnancy and the birth process?
Nope.
and have nothing to show for it at the end of it.
Yeah. That's hurtful. That's hurtful. I can only imagine the agony and the heartbreak, right? Like that I was getting myself hoped up for. That moment or that joy. And so I even want to say, like, this, being able to sit here with my child is a blessing in itself, right? Because truthfully and honestly, this is not everyone's outcome.
True.
Right? And so this is a blessing. And so it's like looking at that, like, wow, like we missed out or wasn't able to like relish in the blessing here. Like that this part kind of just, you said we have no victories here. Like there was no win here. That like what they had went through was a lot, and at the end, like you said, had nothing to show for.
Yeah. It's just, it's so, I can't imagine. And as you said, there are very real stories today.
Yeah.
That completely understand this illustration, right? Because for them, it's not an illustration, like it's life, it's their experience.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just the way it's described, like, and again, as someone, I've never been personally through it, nor have I been, that close to it. I think that I'm like, just that, I don't know, there are very few times I just feel like imagery in poetry or in literature or whatever, it's just so vivid. And I think like that was one of those moments. And as I read that, I was just like, yeah, I got the point. Like,
yeah,
I get that.
Yeah.
But
and 19 is where I went to next, actually, on that was it says your dead will live, their bodies will rise, awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust, for you will be covered with the morning dew, and the earth will bring out the departed spirits. And this is what 19, it made me think about how The Chosen has done a really good job for me in depicting this debate between the Pharisees and the Sadducees about, whether or not the resurrection is real or not, and life after death and all of that. And so this stuck out to me as like, oh, this is another probably real controversial passage or a verse between the Pharisees and Sadducees, because it's like, what you mean? Like, there's going to be, the departed is going to come back, they're going to awaken, and what's happening here? And so for us who believe that there is life after death in heaven with the Lord, like, this is very encouraging, right? But yeah, that's one thing that stuck out for me.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good call out. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be, again, we've seen some last week, we'll continue to see some references to, again, beyond a lot of his prophecies. Isaiah's prophecies were for that people in that day, but also for those of us who would read it generations later. And I think you're right, that's definitely an example of, for us, probably something that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else in 26? Okay. I will keep going. We have 2 more chapters here today. 27 has this couple of verses that's interesting.
Yeah.
Probably really just continuation of 26, really, before it kind of switches a little bit at verse 2. But yeah, what stuck out to you in 27?
Yeah, of course, Leviathan at the beginning.
All right, yeah, I didn't want to like I didn't want to ask you a question about the Leviathan and you ain't like really, think anything of it and put you in a corner, because it's not like we live with Leviathans these days that we know much about it. So, but yeah, what about the Leviathan stuck out to you?
Well, the first mention that we've heard about the Leviathan, like in scripture, is and probably written down was in Job, right? And so I think, once again, it's very interesting to me how the Bible was linked and connected together, that like Job is talking about this Leviathan, and even the Lord himself in that text, right? Those the Lord's words was even speaking about Leviathan. And then here we see the same one. I'm like, oh, he's still alive. Like, he's still alive, but at some point he's gonna be slain. I just curious, what does this Leviathan look like? Like, we talking about him thousands of years later now.
Yeah. And because I went and did a bunch of like reading and research because I was just trying to understand, like, because back from Job, he's also mentioned in Psalms, like, is this a real creature or is this like a symbolic creature, right? And there's not a whole lot of fact on that, right? I think most people tend to take the position that it's more symbolic of evil in general, just a representation of evil and that kind of thing. But as you said, I mean, Job, which is one of the oldest writings in all of Scripture, at least the story itself, and in the Psalms, like you said, it just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And even Revelation mentions, a very similar being. So yeah, I don't know. It is interesting that it just kind of like starts one verse. It's not a whole lot about him.
Yeah.
But just a reminder that he will slay that monster in the sea. He's coming after it.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, like, even in Job, when Job was talking about it, or when God was talking to Job about it, it was like, can you even do anything to rival Leviathan? Like, your little arrows do nothing. Like, your little attempts is fleeting because it's so much bigger and stronger than you. But yet here we see the Lord's like, nah, I'll take him down though. Like, I can slay him. That's my being,
Yeah. Good old Leviathan making an appearance here in Isaiah. We won't see him again until Revelation in Scripture. Right. But all right, anything else in 27 though outside of that?
Yeah, I think mine was at the very end though. Did you have anything before that?
We'll go ahead and we'll jump back if we need to.
Okay. So I think the last thing I had, because let me get to my NLT. Shout out to Dylan getting his NLT version. But in that day, verse 13 said, "Great trumpet will sound. Many who were dying in exile in Assyria and Egypt will return to Jerusalem to worship the Lord on his holy mountain." And so I do see, once again, this contrast between the Lord taking down things of evil or different nations or different things like Leviathan or Moab or whatnot, and then versus, like you said, this hope that he gives them of like the Israelites returning from Assyria or Egypt or wherever he has exiled them to after the punishment. I think it was the end of verse 26 chapter 26. I didn't mention it though, but it was kind of like just like go and hide and close your doors behind you, like until the Lord's anger has passed by. And so it is kind of like, okay, just endure this season. Just go hide. The Lord's getting out his wrath, and then after that he will come in and bring you guys out.
No, I think even to that same point, backing up to verse 7, this even goes back to what we just mentioned with the difference in how Moab was treated. But like, I love it. He's like, did the Lord strike Israel as he struck the one who struck Israel? Was Israel killed like those killed by the Lord? Right? Like, it's clear that as we just kind of mentioned, like, he is not, as much as there is punishment and as much as there is consequence for what they've done, he is still not treating them the same as the other lands and the people around them, right? And those that have gone after him. And I think like there's an element of that, like even as the people of God nowadays, right? Like this is where God's like favor is, right? Like, and I think we often confuse, like, because we believe like, hey, bad things still happen to good people, right? Type of thing, which is very much the case. We read through Job and seen kind of that in real life. I think God's favor is that although we all deserve death, like he extends life. Right. And so like this is where, again, we won't die like they will die. And by they I just mean others who have not professed and proclaimed and accepted Jesus into their heart, right? Like we won't die the same way. And I think that's kind of what Isaiah is mentioning. Is just like, look, yes, some of y'all gonna die, There's gonna be some consequence. Things gonna happen, but I'm not striking you the same way I'm striking everyone else. And I think that even for us, we have to like take solace and find, you know, comfort in that. Like, yeah, like we just don't. Our end is not gonna be the same, because when this life is over, like we know, you know, we have eternity in paradise. And so, I don't know, just that phrasing of it, it's always really good, particularly as you kind of mentioned the fact that for them it was very much literal, and in that time of like, yeah, there will be a season where you guys will come back to Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
But we're gonna end today in 28, which is about Israel more so than Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of talking a little bit about, you know, Samaria and whatnot. Yeah, a little longer chapter kind of compared to some of the other ones, but what stuck out to you here in 28?
You go first this time.
I'm the host. What are you trying
first.
to push me?
Because sometimes you give me these nuggets that I can just like, yeah, let me grab onto those. I do have my highlights, but babe, just lead the way. All right. Verse 1.
You gonna tell me to go? You got something at first one?
Well, I mean, I was giving you the opportunity, you know, to help me explore verse 1. No? All right. You not gonna go?
No.
I feel like it's so much pressure sometimes.
Why?
I don't know. Okay, let me get it together. All right, so chapter 28, verse 1 is I do want to point out though just this destruction of the proud. Like it describes in the NLT like what sorrow awaits for the proud city of Samaria. I know in the CSB it mentions like the woe to the majestic crowns of Ephraim's drunkards, which sounds very different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it just this proud city that, and to me, just it once again, it's like woe to the proud. Like we can't get away from this truth that is like outlined throughout this entire Bible, that like the proud will come down at some point. That like there awaits destruction. And then later on in that same verse, it says, it is the pride of a people brought down by wine. And so I know we go on later on in verse 7 to talk about how their prophets and their priests are drunk, right? They're like staggering on beer and wine, and they can't see their visions, and they stumble in their judgments and all of these things. Like they're just like unstable, right? And I think it's just interesting though that like this pride that is coupled with like lack of control or lack of self-control here, especially when it comes to this wine and stuff, that this is their downfall. Like they are being kept from doing what they were supposed to be there for. Like the priest and the prophet are supposed to be what God used to speak to the people, and they like can't even do their jobs. And I think that's what to me scares me as like a Christian. Like, okay, Lord, like am I just here like stumbling through life and not focused or not like able to even do what you put me here to do? Not saying I'm a priest or a prophet. I'm just saying like whatever my instructions were, whatever my purpose and my job is, like is there something that I'm just allowing to just distract me and tear me down so much that like, or, you know, keep me, you know, foggy brained so much that I can't do what you asked me to do?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, I'm glad you went to 7 and 8 because that's kind of where I was gonna head next after what you led with the pride. But I think you're right. I mean, that all thought goes together, specifically, and I think like just to even kind of continue to pull through those next few verses, like the scarier part to me, and this is where like for all of Isaiah, like what I have wrestled with in the prophets, I mentioned kind of last week, like what Isaiah says is so specific and so like, just so specific for that time that like I really am challenged to consider like what are people saying for my time. Right, like when I think that he is literally saying, like, the way I equate it is like, it's literally like if somebody came and was just like, yeah, California's gonna get conquered by China, you know what I'm saying, and next year, right? Like if somebody just came and said that, like, I'm just gonna disregard it, because the part that jumps out to me is that like verses 10 through 13, where he's just pretty much just like, I keep repeating myself, law after law, line after line, right? Like type of thing. Like they're hearing it, but ultimately, like, they're not going to listen, right? Which is like right there in the middle of verse 12. Like, they're just not going to listen. And so, like, I think when you couple the fact that, like, leaders are off track, like, the message is still being sent and repeated, but ultimately, like, nobody's listening. Like, again, there's just a part of me that wants to be extremely, to your point, humble, right? To say, like, I gotta be willing to listen and hear. And again, who that comes from, I don't know. Like that's the piece that's where discernment and prayer and all of that is helpful, right? So that we can test the prophecies that people, share, right? To test it against his word. But like, I don't know, just that repeating, the idea of just repeating it and people not getting it, is the part that's just really, I just don't want to be that person. Like, I just don't want to be caught up in, I don't hear it, even though it's been repeated and said over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I think it was really interesting. They even like describe how he was repeating this to them as like he's dumbed it down. Like it wasn't as if he came like Jesus and was speaking in parables about these things, right? Like that was hard for the people to understand at some point. Like it says like, who is he talking to, like this, like why does he speak to us like this? Are we children just recently weaned? Like he tells us everything over and over, like he said, this one line at a time that you mentioned, little there. Like it is so plain. I think the message has been so clear, and verse 12 really got me, because it was just like, God has told his people, here is a place of rest, let the weary rest here. This is a place of quiet rest. But they would not listen. And to me, it's even stuck out to like, wow, like what's the opposite though? They're just running around busy. Like they're busy, probably scared, probably doing all the other things, busy partying, being drunk, all these things, but they're not resting in the Lord. And part of me was like, okay, Lord, like you offering so much, but yet nobody's listening to you.
Yeah.
Just like you said, for our generation time, I wonder what that is too.
Yeah.
Sabbath rest. Come on. Come on.
No, that's facts.
Are we Sabbathing?
Nah, probably not the way we need to. No.
This country don't know about Sabbath. He's trying to give us rest, y'all.
Yeah, it's real. So, I'll say 16 and 17 also stuck out because it's kind of a reference of Jesus. Yeah, so laid a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. The one who believes will be unshakable. And I will make justice the measuring line, the righteousness the mason's level. Hell will sweep away the false refuge, and water and flood your hiding place. But I think like even as I don't know, just this reference to it, we didn't even say it back before, where talked about like God will be a essentially like a safe place for the poor and some other things, but just this reference to justice as well. Like I do think it's interesting that was Jesus's message almost above all else, very consistently, was about justice, caring for the poor, the needy, the outcast, right? About, equity and fairness, that kind of thing. And so I just think it's so interesting that like justice is what's always brought you know, or mentioned as far as what the Messiah will bring. I just think people had a different idea of what justice would look like.
That's
ultimately.
True.
But
that's true.
Anything else in 28 though?
Yeah, I just love this last, especially because we just came from like the Psalms and the Proverbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Ecclesiastes, like I just love this last verse 29. Like, you know, he gives wondrous advice. He gives great wisdom, and it's like, yeah, again, if only we had our ears open, right? Yeah.
It's good. Trying to see if there's anything else that I saw, but yeah, I think those are some things that jumped out to us. Obviously, there's a lot we could have talked about.
Yeah.
Because you know, we didn't necessarily touch on every verse here in Isaiah, but that's why you should be reading along and kind of have your own observations of things that you kind of discover. But that brings us to the end of today's reading. We'll come back with chapter 29 tomorrow. But really appreciate you guys joining us here again today for the Vibes Daily Podcast. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Vibes Daily Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or download our favorite, the Vibes Church app. Visit vibes.church/devoted for additional episodes, notes, details, and the latest merch. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the Bible. Take good care.